Watch this.
It's been a battle for more than a year and a half, and it's not calming down anytime soon. Some neighbors are now taking legal action against the city of Boise after a decision to allow Interfaith Sanctuary to move forward with its move.
It is the most impactful committee that I can say I've ever been a part of.
Significant investments into physical and mental health are coming for Idahoans, and more than just a bipartisan effort, it's a watershed moment for the state of Idaho. Nature calls, and someone decided to take that literally. We'll explain. We are flipping the page into a new chapter with Interfaith Sanctuary and their goal to relocate the homeless shelter to West State Street. The City of Boise Planning and Zoning Commission denied Interfaith's conditional use permit back in January, meaning the old Salvation Army building on State Street could not be used for a homeless shelter. However, Interfaith appealed, and this past April, the Boise City Council overturned the Planning and Zoning Commission decision. So this gave Interfaith the green light to step forward with their move to State Street. And now the local neighborhood association is calling for a judicial review because they say the City Council was wrong in their decision. Here's Andrew Bartline.
Usually, the residents of Plum Street have few complaints. That's why 30-year resident Brent Matthew embraced this quiet neighborhood.
Many plums as I usually do.
And allowed the namesake to grow on him.
Some plums on Plum Street.
But his neighborhood's next to the old Salvation Army building on West State Street. The same building Interfaith Sanctuary aims to build its new homeless shelter.
Every neighbor I've spoken to on this street in this neighborhood is opposed to it.
So opposed, the Veterans Park Neighborhood Association filed a petition for judicial review. Neighborhood Association President Katie Decker says the shelter will negatively impact the local community and the location should not have received any level of approval.
Well, I think that we've been clear that we really don't think this belongs in any residential community.
The City Council disagrees. In April, the council voted 4-2 to approve Interfaith's conditional use permit. The permit is for permission to use this space as a homeless shelter. The City Council's vote overturned the city's Planning and Zoning Commission, who originally did not approve the permit.
It's complicated.
The Neighborhood Association is asking for a judge to review the city's process and confirm or deny the legality of the City Council's decision. Interfaith Executive Director Jody Peterson-Stagger says the shelter is focused on what they can control.
Right now, we continue to work on our approved application and move forward on, designing a new shelter for our building.
Interfaith Sanctuary sold their current building to afford the property on State Street. The State Street property plans to serve 205 people experiencing homelessness. If the shelter cannot move to State Street, Interfaith's future is unclear.
It would be a tragedy. We are always looking for plan Bs.
Does that not concern you more, that there could potentially be 200 people with nowhere else to go, just living on the streets of Boise now, if Interfaith has nowhere else to go?
That absolutely concerns me that Interfaith's management allowed them to make that decision to sell their building and put themselves in the position to put their own business out of business.
It appears that Interfaith Sanctuary strong-armed the city with that threat that if you don't give us this permit, we're going to close and you're going to have a bigger problem.
Interfaith says they're committed to being part of the community. Peterson-Steigers adds 7 shelter guests have already gained employment at local businesses on State Street.
If they're willing to walk through the door and they are willing to come and kind of meet us and see what we do, it changes your perspective very quickly.
It's a perspective Matthew already gained.
I have volunteered at Interfaith Sanctuary.
Matthew believes the shelter and the people they help.
They're human beings with their lives just like all of us. And that there's very many varied reasons as to why people are there.
They are employees, they are customers, they are do-gooders in a neighborhood, they have great value.
But Matthew remains firm in his stance that the City Council made a mistake.
I feel that the City Council bended to political pressure.
This petition is against the city, and Interfaith is not named or involved directly. Because of that, Interfaith is moving ahead with business as usual as it currently sits. Their conditional use permit is approved. Now, the neighborhood association, Joe, is unsure what this timeline is going to look like. You know, they have people advising them. They have a lawyer, a legal team. They expect this to take months before they get an answer on it. So, again, the next chapter, it's up in the air. It seems this has been going back and forth for, I know, since before I moved to Boise, more than a year for sure.
Well, I'm curious, from what you understand for now, you know, Interfaith has the go-ahead. Are they going forward like, hey, we're going to move in or we're planning to be there soon? Yeah, I mean, I was told by Jody Peterson-Steigers today they have new renderings they're going to be creating. They have an updated plan and design. So, I mean, they're moving forward expecting the permit to stay in place, but they understand there's a possibility that things can change as it's gone back and forth twice already. Well, one thing you always learn in politics and complicated stories, plans change. So we'll see what the end result is here. It's Andrew Bartline. Thank you so much, Andrew. Well, in a very unique set of circumstances, politicians, doctors, judges, and major community stakeholders are coming together for one cause: improving mental and behavioral health resources here in Idaho. Now, the group Mental Health America ranks Idaho 50th in 2021 in the country when it comes to overall mental health access and resources. So very literally almost last. If you look back historically, Idaho on a lot of metrics sits near the bottom of the pack in this category of mental health evaluations. So is something going to be done, or is this just the way it is in the Gem State? Well, good news for those of you who are hoping it's option A, doing something about it. Major players from all across Idaho are working to find solutions, and now they have the blessing from Idaho Governor Brad Little to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. Major stakeholders in all branches of Idaho government are celebrating a new multi-year investment into behavioral and mental health to the tune of $66 million. The hope is that major investments into targeted areas of need will transform Idaho's approach and resources.
It is a lot of money. It's probably the largest one-time infusion of funds that we've had in my tenure in working at the department.
Ross Edmonds is the administrator of behavioral health at the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. Edmonds says the news of major investments into behavioral health is the result of years of preparing.
Yeah, there was. I think what we recognized is that behavioral health doesn't just belong to any one organization or entity. It affects all of us. It affects people involved in the court system, people involved in corrections, people that aren't involved in court system or corrections at all. And so sort of adding all that together, what we realized is that we should create this cross-sectional council. And so we call it the three branch solution. So it's all three branches of government came together and created the Idaho Behavioral Health Council to study the system and then make recommendations on how best to move behavioral health forward in the state.
What challenges is Idaho facing right now in terms of behavioral health infrastructure?
Well, there's probably a few I would point out. First and foremost, number one is workforce. Workforce is a huge challenge for us right now, just finding enough people that are wanting to work in the field generally, not even just in specific areas within the field, but just generally working in behavioral health is a real challenge. The other part is the rural nature of Idaho, trying to find some mechanism to get people the services in their own communities and not have to force them to travel hours and hours or move to be able to get the services they need. It's not realistic for us to put every kind of service into every community. We're not going to get a psychiatric hospital in every community around the state, but how can we find resources as close to people's homes as we possibly can?
A major catalyst for the investments is the Idaho Behavioral Health Council, a group made up of doctors, lawmakers, judges, topic experts, and health administrators. The council worked for years to study areas of need and identify solutions that investments could address. Idaho Representative Brooke Green is on the council and has worked with it since the beginning.
When we first started meeting, it was kind of who are the players at the table, right? So the interesting part about it is it includes, not only does it include legislators, but it also has practitioners on board, educational, representatives on board. You've got the judicial, and it was kind of getting in the room together and recognizing as we move forward together, what does that look like? And initially it was, what is our strategic plan? How can we be impactful in Idaho? And it's getting all these phenomenal minds and leaders in the community to get together and actually think through that process.
It seems that when you have scenarios like this, one of the most impressive things is that you got everybody at the table together to talk about this. I mean, how crucial is that just to get everyone on the same page?
It was incredibly crucial. It was incredibly important in addition that all three branches bought into this. And the resolution made that happen, putting it in legislation made it happen, but also following it up with actual funding makes it a little bit more real. Right? We are actually talking policy and then we're implementing that.
It's a huge statement. I think that we've been building for this for some time. We really, over the past decade, have been adding components to the system. Crisis centers. We've talked a lot about crisis centers, recovery centers. We've been adding components to the system. I think the beauty of what the Behavioral Health Council is doing and these investments, it's to take all of those component pieces and to put them together in a single model. It's to really build a system as opposed to segments of a system that are sort of free functioning, and bringing all that together in a really systemic way is probably the best thing that we can do.
What investments or targeted allocations were you most excited about?
Well, I would say the youth programs, because in Idaho we have a huge gap of providing for some of our most vulnerable children, and it's because we don't have facilities to treat them. We don't have the ability to put them either in long-term residential treatment, oftentimes actually shipping them out of state. And I had heard from a lot of parents who were like, I'm incredibly concerned, while my child is 14, 15, they're exhibiting these behaviors, what resources are available? And we rely on Medicaid to get them the resources. The reality is we need to provide more robust residential treatment facilities, more diversion opportunities. That to me is really our commitment, because if we can address issues while they're young, the opportunity to put them on a path to success is incredibly important.
Curious for your opinion on this, because as an outsider, it would seem to me the last few years there's really been an emphasis on mental health, behavioral health. With COVID and the pandemic, I think very clearly the community saw the impacts of that. That's my view as an outsider. I'm curious, is that the reality here on the inside, that COVID really drew attention to mental health and behavioral health and maybe drew attention for more investments?
I think so. We've definitely recognized that through COVID, the isolation involved in that, it exacerbated some people's anxiety, some depression, and that sort of stuff. I don't know that COVID, from my perspective, necessarily created a more a robust public recognition of it. I think that's kind of generational. Honestly, it's for some time now we've recognized that kids today are much more open to talking about their anxiety or their depression than generations in the past. The kind of historical mentality of, look, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. That's a weakness to say that you need help. I think we're moving away from that. I think we're moving to a place now where people recognize that mental illness is an illness like any other. It's a chronic health condition.
And there is a lot more to dive into on this topic and the plan the state of Idaho has. And our partner Betsy Russell over at the Idaho Press did a fantastic deep dive into the new investments and programs that the $66 million will help with over the next 3 years. You can find her write-up and more details about this program and what the state of Idaho is doing on the mental health front right now. Our website, ktvb.com. Idaho's Republican leaders are in Twin Falls for the next few days for their annual convention, and they'll be choosing their leadership on Saturday. Incumbent Tom Luna, the former superintendent of Idaho schools, will face off against former state representative Dorothy Moon of Stanley. Now, Moon, who campaigned to become the next Secretary of State, lost in the primary back in May. And tomorrow, the Resolutions Committee, a 67-member group which features names like Ada County Commissioner Ryan Davidson, Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeehan, as well as several current lawmakers, including Senate Pro Tem Chuck Winder, well, they'll all be meeting to consider adopting 31 resolutions. One of those resolutions made headlines locally here today. Maybe you saw this, claiming that President Biden did not legitimately win the 2020 election. Now, Idaho's resolution, which is similar to that of one that Texas adopted last month, it claims that vote count audits in both Wisconsin and Arizona were fraudulent. The resolution also claims that the secretaries of state in both Wisconsin and Arizona circumvented their state legislatures. This is all despite of the fact that election fraud claims have been dismissed by courts or rejected by the state's bipartisan election commission in Wisconsin. In Arizona, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, is looking into the Republican Arizona Senate president who orchestrated a discredited review of the election. To be clear, they're not trying to overturn the election results in Idaho, where President Trump won with 64% of the vote. So what about the other 30 resolutions on the agenda? Well, several include voting and voting rights, including one for changing Idaho's elections. Now, that one would include moving over to an electoral-style process that would instead tally electoral votes instead of the popular vote, like the presidential election is done, meaning a candidate in Idaho could get the most votes but not win an election. However, that would require changing the state's constitution. Another resolution here is aimed at transgender folks, calling for the party to recognize people only by the gender that they were born with. So what hold do resolutions have on the state itself? What is the importance of this? Well, they're not effective as law, but they could become a catalyst for future legislation with such a strong Republican majority in the Idaho State House. Again, that meeting happens tomorrow morning. We're going to have more on our show here on the 208 tomorrow. Well, you saw it there. Summer in Idaho usually means three things: triple-digit temperatures, but a dry heat, long nights, and construction season. Now, some people often refer to those orange traffic cones as Idaho's state flower because you see them everywhere. And there will be even more out there on our roadways in the near future. We got this text from Barb and Meridian earlier this week asking, do you know when Highway 16 connecting to I-84 will start? Wow, it's a great question. So, Highway 16 is the road that takes you out to Emmett, but the Idaho Transportation Department, they've had it in their plans for years to actually expand the road all the way to I-84. Now, right now, the highway goes through Chinden, or Highway 2026, but starting next week, construction will start on expanding it all the way to I-84. There will be some overnight lane closures on I-84 while crews work, but all lanes will be open during the day. And tonight, there's an open house to talk about expanding it even further, south into Nampa. So who knows, infrastructure in Idaho changing quickly. How many stories have we done in recent years that involve people leaving behind trash in Idaho's wilderness? We're talking trash, used needles, broken tools, clothes, even human waste. Oh, I'll say it, we're talking poop here. Whether it's at campsites or strewn about in public restrooms, the problems, they continue regardless of what we tell you here on the 208. In the last 2 years, we counted 5 individual stories that we had to cover in different parts of the state where there was so much trash found piled up that either a campsite and restroom had to close for cleaning or they've been closed for the foreseeable future, like the popular Skinny Dipper Hot Springs near Garden Valley. It's been closed for about 6 years now, and it will likely be closed for another 4. Now, to prevent additional damage to natural resources, the BLM had previously said that's why it had to be closed. Now, Kirkham Hot Springs in Lowman has also seen its fair share of mistreatment from us humans over the years, but this may take the cake, or the throne, if I may. This is so Idaho. Oh, excuse me, so not Idaho. We saw this picture posted to a McCall Facebook group earlier in the week. The poster, who did not want us to use their name, said that they were on a city bike path on Spring Mountain Boulevard, and they saw this, the porcelain throne, if you will. The loo, the john, the toilet, the white thing you see on your screen, right there in the middle of the bike path. Why and how? Who knows? Now, they say that the DIY restroom has since been removed by city staff. As a reminder, public grounds are not dumping grounds. Do not even try that. Don't drop off your unwanted commodities or any of these issues on the trails or public lands. Take it to a dumpster where it belongs. And if nature does call, just use a public restroom. Does our program ever end and you find yourself saying, well, I would love some more 208 content. I would just love some more. Well, you can have unlimited content when you connect with us online after the show. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can even email or call us. Of course, we know you love the text messages as well. So connect with us. We love to talk with you off air. And to be frank, the precipice of this show really is talking with the viewers to see what you guys want. So also, a real quick reminder, if you're sending in text messages for us to use at the end of the show, please, please, please do not contain profanity in your message. We can't put them on the screen. We have a lot of messages we wanted to share today. Some of them, though, 4-letter words were not clear to use. But this one we are clear. This is from Jeff. Jeff writes to us, what happened to Katya? Thanks. Katya, former 208 reporter, she is now working in the news industry down in Utah. So if you're ever down in Salt Lake or maybe you got a layover at the airport there, throw on the TV. Maybe you'll see an old familiar face. So I'm going to tell you a little secret. 208 dad, Brian, he's gone. He's gone for the rest of the week. So we want to hear from you. What do you want us to dive into tomorrow on the Friday 208? We got the team here. We're just so excited to dive into Friday, but we love to hear from you. So send us a text message right after the show and join us tomorrow. We're going to have a fun Friday show here on the 208. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, take care of each other out there. Hydrate. We'll see you tomorrow.